The Riverside Market was a quiet, ordinary place in Pine Valley, a town just outside Atlanta, where not much ever happened. The kind of place with community bulletin boards, dusty light fixtures, and cashiers who called you sweetheart without knowing your name. It was Sunday, just after 3 p.m., when the peaceful hum of checkout scanners and squeaky carts was broken by the buzz of a walkie-talkie and the sharp command, Code 22, Aisle 6, Suspect Flagged. 2 uniformed officers, Officer Briggs and Officer Klein, entered through the sliding glass doors with the weight of someone expecting trouble. Briggs was broad, red-faced, and sweaty under his bulletproof vest. Klein, younger, was twitchy, the type who overcompensated for authority he hadn't earned. They moved past frozen dinners and cereal boxes until they spotted her. A black woman, late 40s, stood at the fruit aisle. She wore a navy blue blouse tucked into slacks, her short, natural hair shaped neatly. In her cart, almond milk, a loaf of bread, a pack of tuna cans, and a carton of blueberries. Her face was serene, the look of someone who didn't need to rush. Briggs stormed up to her. "Ma'am, we've had reports. You've been acting suspiciously in the store. I need you to step away from the cart and present identification." The woman looked up, startled but calm. "Excuse me," I said. "Step back from the cart and show ID now. I haven't done anything wrong." Klein already had his hand on his holster. "She's refusing to comply," he said loudly, as if on cue. The woman glanced around. Shoppers had begun to slow to stare. A child clung to his mother's leg. The store manager, a tall white man in khakis and a tucked polo, hovered nearby. "She's been loitering and pacing back and forth between aisles," he offered. "I was comparing prices," the woman said. "That was all it took." Briggs moved in. Roughly, without explanation, he grabbed her wrist, twisted it behind her back, and cuffed her. Her cart tipped over. Almond milk spilled. Blueberries rolled across the floor. She didn't resist, didn't cry, just said, evenly, "You're making a mistake." "Tell it to the judge," Briggs muttered, as they led her away. Phones came out. A few bystanders recorded. One teenage girl mouthed, "What did she even do?" The woman, still composed, though her wrists now bore red marks, looked over her shoulder at the spilled groceries, at the phones, at the small boy who had started crying, and then she said nothing, because she knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Her name was Monica Renee Ellis, 44 years old, 5'7", deep brown skin that glowed with that kind of regal softness, earned, not inherited. Her hair was short, natural, tightly coiled, shaped with care. Her eyes were almond-shaped and quiet, but not passive. They saw everything. Her voice, when she used it, was smooth and low, like velvet over steel. That morning, Monica had left her modest 3-bedroom home in Stonecrest, wearing what she always wore on Sundays, a navy blue blouse, gray slacks, flat shoes, and a long camel-colored coat. She didn't wear makeup, except for soft gloss and a single gold ring on her finger. No purse, just a canvas tote bag with a grocery list and her wallet inside. She was on her way to pick up a few essentials and then head to her goddaughter's piano recital. That was the plan. Monica lived a quiet life. She kept to herself. The neighbors described her as polite, soft-spoken, but always alone. Some thought she was a retired teacher. Others guessed social worker. No one knew exactly. She drove a 10-year-old sedan with a small scratch on the passenger door and never had visitors past 8 p.m., but she always walked like someone with perfect balance, like nothing in the world could tilt her off center. It was that composure, that unnerved. The officers, after her arrest, inside the station, Monica was placed in a gray-tiled holding room. There was no yelling, no struggle, just her, seated alone at a cold steel table. She looked out the window calmly, as if waiting for a bus. Her wrists, now free of cuffs, were gently folded on her lap. Officer Briggs stood outside the observation glass with a smirk. She thinks she's royalty or something, won't even raise her voice. Klein, pacing nearby, seemed less certain. What if we got it wrong? Got what wrong? She fit the description. Nervous, stalling, black. You think she's nervous, or just composed? Briggs rolled his eyes. You're starting to sound like a liberal back in the holding room. Monica glanced at the camera in the corner. A red recording light blinked. She knew exactly what it meant. They hadn't run her name yet. They hadn't even checked her ID. They just assumed, because she didn't shout, because she didn't look wealthy, because she was alone, because she was black, and because of that, she knew something else. They would regret this back home. Her work tote sat untouched on her hallway table. Inside, it was a black leather wallet containing two things: her government ID card with the Georgia state seal, and the silver lapel pin issued only 2 constitutional officers. Neither of those had been checked yet. The minutes dragged. Monica sat in silence while the officers moved in and out of the observation room like confused students before a pop quiz. At first, they were cocky, confident, laughing behind the glass like they had caught a petty thief. But slowly, the energy shifted because something didn't add up. They had no charges, no stolen items, no priors, no probable cause. Just a gut feeling, a store manager's word, and an outdated racial bias that made 2 white officers think they were dealing with someone powerless. Meanwhile, inside the holding room, Monica's presence never changed. She didn't slouch. She didn't fidget. She didn't ask for a phone call. She didn't even ask for water. Her silence made the air heavier than shouting ever could. Out in the hallway, Officer Klein grew uneasy. He tapped on the keyboard, pulling up the arrest report, or trying to. There was nothing in the system. The booking wasn't processed. Monica Ellis had never been entered. "Yo," Klein said to the desk sergeant, "you run her ID yet?" The sergeant, a young black man named Harris, "Y'all didn't give me anything. No ID, no charges. What am I supposed to run?" Klein blinked. She didn't have ID. No, she did. But Briggs took her wallet, said he'd file it after. Where is it? The question hung in the air in the locker room. Briggs was eating vending machine chips and checking sports scores. Monica's wallet, unopened, sat in his breast pocket. The sergeant frowned. "You got a name." Klein hesitated, she said. "Monica Renee Ellis." Sergeant Harris stopped mid-typing. He looked up. "Wait, Monica Ellis." Klein nodded. "Yeah. Why?" The sergeant stood up, walked over to his computer, entered something manually. Within seconds, a restricted profile popped up, government sealed, high-clearance. There it was. Monica Renee Ellis, Attorney General, State of Georgia. Appointed Arlene Arsen, active status. Background: Harvard Law, Federal Prosecutor, Civil Rights Division. clearance level. Executive Klein leaned in and went pale. Oh, my God. Outside, a local news van had already pulled into the parking lot. Unbeknownst to the officers, a teen named Jasmine had posted the video of the arrest online with the caption, "They cuffed this black woman in a grocery store for no reason. She said they'd regret it." I believe her. The clip was already at 28,000 views and rising. Inside the holding room, Monica simply sat and waited. She could hear the murmurs now, the hurried steps, the hesitation. She'd seen it all before, not just in life, but in court. The way power shifted when truth entered the room. She didn't need to raise her voice. She never did. When the door finally creaked open and Briggs walked in, he wasn't laughing anymore. He had the wallet in his hand now open. Her ID was face up. He was sweating. "You, ... Ms. Ellis? There's been a bit of a misunderstanding," he stammered. She looked at him, not angry, just disappointed. "A misunderstanding," she repeated, her tone flat. "We didn't realize who you were." Her lips curled into the faintest trace of a smile. Not warm, not cruel, just knowing. "I'm not surprised," she said. "You weren't trying to find out." 2 years earlier, the grand rotunda of the Georgia State Capitol was standing room only. Press cameras clicked like typewriters. Political insiders lined the balconies. The governor stood at the podium, flanked by state officials in crisp suits. In the center of it all stood Monica Renee Ellis, poised and graceful, in a charcoal gray pantsuit and crimson blouse. Her short, natural hair was shaped with care, her earrings simple gold studs. Her presence filled the chamber, not by noise, but by weight. Today, the governor declared, "We make history by swearing in Georgia's first black woman attorney general." Applause thundered, but Monica didn't blink. Her mind wasn't on celebration. It was on purpose. The cameras caught her smile, but few knew the story behind it. Born in Augusta, raised in the foster system, passed through 7 different homes by age 12, learned early that silence was survival. But even as a child, she listened, really listened, and remembered everything. She put herself through Spelman College with scholarships, double majored in political science and philosophy, then earned a law degree from Harvard while working nights as a janitor in a library. She didn't drink, didn't chase attention. She read case law and wrote civil rights motions while her classmates went clubbing. She clerked under a federal judge, then joined the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, took down corrupt DAS, defended wrongly convicted youth, and held 3 police departments under consent decrees for systemic misconduct. She was called the Quiet Hammer by insiders. When Georgia's Attorney General resigned amid scandal, a bipartisan panel nominated Monica, not because she was loud, but because she was the kind of woman who, when she walked into a courtroom, made even the judges sit straighter. On her first day, she removed the private security detail, insisted on driving herself, rejected the corner office, and chose a desk near the interns. "Power doesn't come from being seen," she once told a colleague. "It comes from knowing when not to speak." Her lapel pin, a small silver medallion with the Georgia state seal, was her only visible symbol of rank. She wore it rarely that Sunday. It sat quietly in the front pocket of the canvas tote bag she'd left on her hallway table. But she hadn't forgotten who she was, not when the cuffs clicked, not when they spilled her groceries. Not when the officer smirked and said, "Tell it to the judge," because Monica was the judge, the law, the entire damn system they thought she didn't belong to. Back in the holding room, Officer Briggs now knew. His hands trembled slightly as he placed her wallet on the table. Monica picked it up, leafed through it, and removed her government ID. She didn't lift it up. She didn't wave it in his face. She just laid it flat on the steel table, turned toward him, and said softly, "Tell me, Officer Briggs, how many other women have you done this to?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Behind the glass, Sergeant Harris was already making calls. The precinct captain had been alerted. The governor's office had left 2 voicemails. Someone from the State Ethics Commission was en route, and still, Monica sat quietly. She wasn't angry. She wasn't surprised. She was ready, because she'd seen this world for what it was. And she had built herself to move through it like a shadow until the moment the light demanded her name. And now, the light was here. The precinct hallway had fallen into a strange, tense silence. Everyone had heard by now. Phones buzzed, officers whispered. A local news anchor had just posted on X, "Black woman falsely arrested at Pine Valley grocery store turns out to be Georgia's Attorney General." Developing story. Inside the holding room, Monica Ellis remained seated, but everything about her had changed, not visibly, not to the untrained eye, but there was a shift. Her spine still straight, her hands still calm in her lap, but her gaze had sharpened. Her eyes no longer just watched, they cut, each blink measured, each breath controlled. Power had entered the room. Briggs returned, sheepish and sweating now. His tone had changed. No more barking orders. No more fake authority. Just awkward, stuttering half apologies. Ms. Ellis," he began. "We've, released the hold. You're free to go." She looked at him. Didn't blink. Gestured. "And what about the public records of this arrest?" "Well, technically, you weren't booked, so there's nothing on file." Her voice came low, quiet as ever. "Run the footage." Briggs blinked. "Excuse me?" "The body cam, the security footage, the dashboard cams. Pull them up." "Ma'am, there's no need. It wasn't a request," she said, her eyes finally locking onto his dot. Briggs hesitated, then walked out. Across the precinct, Sergeant Harris was already doing what needed to be done. He'd reviewed the arrest report, or lack thereof. No charges filed. No chain of custody on her belongings. No Miranda rights read. Everything was broken protocol. And in her silence, Monica had built a case stronger than 1,000 screaming protests. In the break room, Officer Klein sat alone. He looked sick, pale, and silent, the weight of it crashing down. He remembered the woman in the grocery store, calm, holding blueberries, not yelling, not stealing, just existing. And they'd cuffed her anyway. Why? Because she didn't fit their picture of power, because her blouse wasn't designer, because she didn't wear heels, because she wasn't loud. Klein stood and walked out, straight to Monica's holding room. He knocked once. She looked up. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. We were wrong." She looked at him for a long moment, not coldly, just deeply, like she was looking at the real part of him for the first time. "Do you know why I didn't resist?" she asked. He shook his head. "Because I needed you to show the world who you really are, not who you pretend to be on body cams." Klein swallowed hard. And now, she continued, rising from the chair with smooth, deliberate grace. You're going to escort me out of here, through the front, not the back door. No apologies, no fanfare, just silence. The same silence you arrested me with? Klein nodded, stunned. Monica walked past him, her posture regal, her footsteps light, but every inch a reckoning dot in the lobby. Reporters had started gathering. Sergeant Harris tried to hold them off, but Monica lifted a single hand. Let them see. Briggs tried to stay in the shadows. Klein kept his head down, and Monica, she stood at the threshold of the glass doors, sunlight pouring over her like justice itself. She turned once to the lobby, to the officers, the clerks, the staff who had watched her be humiliated, and said the one thing she hadn't said all day. My name is Monica Renee Ellis, and I serve as the Attorney General of the state of Georgia. The officers who arrested me failed to ask who I was, but more importantly, they never cared. And then she walked out. By the time Monica Ellis stepped outside the Pine Valley Police Department, the world had caught up. What started as a shaky cell phone video had become a viral firestorm. Local news stations were already rolling live coverage. National outlets were pinging their southern bureaus. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube were flooded with clips, and hashtags. Hashtag Monica Ellis. Hashtag AG wrongfully arrested. Hashtag This is America. The grocery store parking lot where it all began was now cordoned off, and protesters had already begun gathering with signs that read, "Silence isn't compliance. We believe Monica. She is the law," inside the police department. Panic reigned. Captain Ramirez, called in mid-Sunday from a family barbecue, stood red-faced in the precinct office. "You arrested the Attorney General of the damn state," he barked. Briggs stood frozen. Sweat pooled at his collar. "We didn't know. You didn't check." Ramirez cut him off. "You cuffed her in public. You humiliated her. You put your knee on the throat of the law itself." In the evidence room, body cam footage was being uploaded. The security footage from Riverside Market had been subpoenaed by the State Ethics Commission. Every second of the incident was now part of the official record, and it didn't look good. There was no resisting, no theft, no loitering, just a calm black woman buying blueberries at the press podium outside. A media frenzy brewed, cameras pointed, microphones waited. Monica didn't speak right away. She stood in front of the microphones, her blouse unwrinkled, her gold earrings catching the sun. She didn't look angry. She looked inevitable. Then she spoke, her voice clear, soft, and slow. "2 officers arrested me yesterday for suspicious behavior while I was shopping for groceries. I asked what I had done. They could not answer. They did not ask for my name. They did not check my identification. They simply decided I didn't belong." Reporters were silent. "In a few minutes, I'll return to my office and continue serving the people of Georgia. But let this moment be clear. I was not treated unfairly because I am the Attorney General. I was treated unfairly because I am a black woman." Flashbulbs exploded. One reporter whispered, "Wow." "And I am not the first," Monica continued. "But I promise you this, I will do everything in my power to make sure I am the last." Behind the crowd, the governor's chief of staff nodded solemnly. "She just won re-election," he muttered, to no one in particular. Back inside, the mood had flipped completely. Briggs was placed on immediate administrative leave. Officer Klein was suspended pending internal review. The store manager at Riverside Market, Chad Withers, had already been terminated. His employer released a statement condemning racial profiling and offering a public apology. But Monica, she didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She didn't even seem satisfied, because this was never about revenge. It was about correction. Before she left the precinct, Sergeant Harris approached her, nervous but sincere. "Ma'am, I just want to say I admire how you handled all of this. You could have destroyed this department with a phone call." Monica looked at him. Her eyes were soft now, but no less commanding. "That's not power," she said. "That's ego. What I used was the truth." She turned and walked toward the exit. Her flats tapped lightly against the tile floor. Her coat billowed behind her like a quiet storm. Everyone in the building stood still, watching a woman who had been treated like a criminal now leave with the air of a queen.
3 days after the arrest, the storm still hadn't calmed. But Monica Ellis? She was back at her desk. No press cameras, no entourage, no victory lap, just her usual routine. 6 a.m. coffee, 6:45 inbox check, 7:30 closed-door strategy meeting. With her legal staff, she didn't need a parade. She had work to do. But the ripple effect of that Sunday afternoon had already begun reshaping everything in its path. At the Pine Valley Police Department, Officer Briggs tendered his resignation before the disciplinary review even began. Not because he was sorry, but because the public backlash had become unbearable. His name and face had flooded social media. Every interview request brought more scrutiny. His authority had evaporated. He had become the symbol of the exact thing Monica had fought her entire career to dismantle. The careless use of power. Officer Klein stayed, but barely. In an internal hearing, he broke down in tears, admitting he'd followed Briggs blindly, assumed the worst without even asking for her name. Monica never spoke with him directly, but he received a letter from her office, typed, not signed. It read, "Accountability is not punishment. It's a first step toward change. Use this moment." He taped it to his locker. The Riverside Market issued a public apology and pledged a full partnership with the Attorney General's office to implement racial bias training for all employees across the chain. The store manager, Chad Withers, released a statement too, but Monica declined to respond. She didn't need his words. She needed change. That same week, Monica convened an emergency roundtable of law enforcement leaders, civil rights experts, and policymakers. The agenda was simple: create the Ellis Reform Act, a statewide mandate requiring ID verification, probable cause documentation, and bias training certifications for all officers engaging with nonviolent suspects. The room was filled with suits, microphones, and notebooks, but everyone sat a little straighter. Everyone listened. Because now they understood something. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Dignity doesn't mean submission. Calm doesn't mean powerless. And Monica Ellis, the woman they once saw handcuffed next to a spilled carton of blueberries, had now become the architect of the very policies meant to prevent that moment from ever happening again. But there was one final act of justice. Monica returned quietly to Riverside Market the following Sunday. No cameras, no press. Just her. She walked in, same navy blouse, same flats, same calm stride, the same produce aisle. Some shoppers recognized her and froze. A few whispered. One woman offered a quiet thank you as she passed. She picked up a basket: almond milk, tuna, grapes, and finally the blueberries. This time, no one followed her. No one stared too long. No one questioned her place at checkout. The young cashier was visibly nervous. She scanned each item slowly. When Monica reached into her tote bag to pay, she pulled out not a wallet, but a silver lapel pin gleaming in the store's fluorescent light. She placed it gently on the counter beside her card. The cashier's hands trembled. "You? You don't have to do that," she whispered. Monica just smiled. "I know." She took her bag, nodded once, and walked out. No sirens. No applause. Just the quiet satisfaction of walking back into the same place where she had once been broken and leaving whole.
On Monday morning, the Georgia state capitol was bathed in soft autumn light. The marble floors echoed faintly with footsteps. The flags stood still, and the chambers were quiet, except for one office on the eastern wing. The nameplate outside read, Monica R. Ellis, Attorney General. Inside, Monica sat at her desk, no longer a headline, but something far more powerful, a mirror to the system, not seeking attention, not riding a media wave, just doing the work. Her office was modest, a few framed law degrees, a bookshelf lined with civil rights case studies. On the wall behind her hung one single image, a photo of her mother, a woman Monica had never met, but whose case file she once uncovered in foster care. It was a quiet reminder she hadn't risen through the system. She had survived it, and now she was reshaping it. Her inbox was full, over 2,300 emails from across the country. Black women wrote about traffic stops. Fathers described humiliating searches. Law students sent letters thanking her for showing what justice could look like without vengeance. She replied to as many as she could. She never once mentioned the officers' names. Not in the news, not in interviews, not even in private, because this was never about two men with badges. It was about the systems that made those badges feel invincible when held against someone like her. At 3:07 p.m., she closed her laptop, stood, and walked to her office window down below. People moved along the city streets, ordinary, unaware. Just like that day at the grocery store, she thought of the handcuffs, the cold steel, the snap that echoed louder in memory than it did in sound. But more than that, she remembered the silence and how she chose not to break it with rage, but with purpose. Because real power doesn't scream, it doesn't threaten, it waits, then acts. Her phone buzzed. A message from the governor's office. Ellis Reform Act passes committee vote. Full floor vote scheduled. Congratulations. Monica smiled, not broadly, just softly, like someone watching seeds begin to sprout. She gathered her things, canvas tote in hand. That same quiet walk, that same sense of knowing who she was, no matter how the world tried to forget. At the Capitol's south entrance, an intern held the door for her. He was young, wide-eyed, probably still in undergrad. "Ms. Ellis," he asked timidly, "can I ask, what was going through your head when they put the cuffs on you?" She paused, turned to face him. Her voice, as always, was calm. "I was thinking how lucky they were," she said. He looked puzzled. "Because I'm the kind of person who believes in teaching," she added, "not crushing." Then she stepped outside, into the breeze, into the noise, into the world that would forever see her differently now. But she hadn't changed.